I will call to order the Monday 7th meeting of the Verona Plan Commission, and we will begin with the roll call, please.
Commissioner Linder.
Here.
Commissioner Ritter.
Here.
Mayor Holcomer.
Here.
Commissioner Horsfall. Here. Commissioner Heinzen.
Here.
Commissioner Lytle is absent and excused, and Alderperson Yurs is absent and excused.
Thank you for that. Included with the minutes, or included with the packet, are the minutes from the March 3rd meeting of the Plan Commission. What is your pleasure?
Motion approved.
We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Horsfall. Were there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the previous meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. With that, we have 3 public hearings this evening, and we will take them all individually. The first one is I would accept a motion to open a public hearing on zoning ordinance text amendment to modify the city's zoning ordinance to allow personal or professional services as a conditional use within the urban industrial zoning district. Specific sections to be modified include 13-1-57, parent 2, parent B, parent 2, and then table 13-1-82 and 13-1-89, parent B and parent 3. With that, I would accept the motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Heinzen. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Ritter. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. We are in the public hearing stage, and I would ask Mr. Sayre if you would provide the background, please.
Sure. This is a request for a zoning text amendment to allow personal and professional services within the UI district. Personal professional services are defined as the ordinance as all exclusively indoor land uses whose primary function is to provide services directly to individual on a walk-in or appointment basis. Examples of such uses include professional services, insurance or financial services, realty offices, medical offices and clinics, veterinarian clinics, barber shops, beauty shops, and related land uses. At the Plan Commission, there is a public hearing, which we're in right now, that's required by ordinance, and this is a recommendation to the Common Council.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. With that, the public hearing is now open. If there's anyone that wishes to speak, there should be a sign-up sheet at the podium, and we would ask that you would please sign in and state your name and address, not only for our benefit, but for those watching at home.
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity in order to be able to present to you today. My name is Greg Fromm. I'm with Alexander Real Estate Services, and I represent Jessica Laufenberg with SBR Coaching. We have two applications this evening. One is for the zoning text amendment, which is what I'll address right now, and then we also have a subsequent conditional use permit that we also applied for, and we'll get to in a moment. A few brief comments regarding our request. The provision that we're requesting is for the urban industrial zoning district. It is an existing provision within your code. We're just looking to have that expanded into the urban industrial zoning district. We also are proposing that the City of Verona retain the conditional use permit provisions so that as applications come forth for future businesses, the city has the ability to maintain the authority to kind of maintain that integrity of the urban industrial zoning district. The urban industrial being in closer proximity to the urban core does have some suitable properties that it's going to be important to maintain the traditional industrial feel to it. Also, given its location, there's also some properties along some more high-profile locations, across from Fireman's Park on Bruce Street, for example, along Paoli Street, that offer greater opportunities without necessarily having a negative or detrimental impact on adjacent properties. So we feel that adopting this provision, allowing the city to be able to pick and choose through the conditional use permit is an appropriate route as compared to just having it not be permitted at all within the zoning text. And then also, given the proximity, What we're talking about for the personal and professional services, having some of those in closer proximity to the urban core and to the residents, making it more accessible, we feel is going to be an asset as compared to potentially pushing those to new development areas a little bit further away from town. So being able to have a little bit of urban revitalization, repurposing some existing buildings through this by just expanding the land use is going to generate some continued reinvestment in some of your existing properties and make them more attractive and accessible for residents. So also available for questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this point for Greg? If not, I know he's available, so thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Anyone else in the public that wishes to speak?
Good evening. I am Jessica Offenberg. Greg's representing me with SBR Coaching and looking at changing the usage of that property down there. More on the aspect of the usage of it and making the ability for the entire building that we can change the services in there, and it's the primary location that we're looking at, and that will be in the next hearing for the next part of it, but giving us the ability in the location to do the services that we want. We're not looking at, high traffic. We're more of a service-based, appointment-based type service, so it would not disrupt the normal flow in the area that is there. Hopefully encourage and create more of a meeting ground and direction for people who come to that area already on that side of town, and be that direct point for people on any of that. So a lot more I want to say, but it's probably going to pertain more to the next public hearing part of it. So I don't know if you have any questions for me, myself, because I'll be the one. I am the one looking to change the usage.
Are there any questions at this point for Jessica? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak on agenda item 4A? Anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Anyone else that wishes to speak? Seeing none, I would accept the motion to close the public hearing. We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall. Is there a second? Is there seconded by Mr. Heinzen? All in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried, and we are now on agenda item 4A for discussion and possible action. And if we were to take action on this, this would be a recommendation to the Common Council. Are there questions or comments from the Plan Commission members? Mr. Horsfall.
My speaker to work. Oh, there it is. Okay. What is allowed in personal professional services now? What zoning would have that? I guess what I'm asking is, why are we changing urban industrial rather than changing the zoning of this property to meet that?
Mr. Sayre?
Yeah, that was a conversation that I know the applicant and I had initially about this site of why looking at it from a zoning text amendment versus a rezoning. And the issue with the rezoning is, one, in the comp plan, it is planned as an industrial park. So in the comprehensive plan, this whole area of the city is planned as industrial land uses. So it wasn't planned that way in the city's long-term plan. Second, in looking at the surrounding uses in that area, most of them are geared towards more of an industrial land use in that region of the city. The conversation that we had was, well, it may be more appropriate as a commercial, but I think doing it on a piece by piece by piece basis probably isn't the best way of looking at this part of the city. We have, and I can, so the property right is right there. And kind of looking at this whole, I'll call it a triangle or whatever kind of shape that is, I think it'd be more beneficial if the city were looking at that as a whole versus picking out piece by piece which one that we want to look at. I've had some conversations even with the adjacent property, which is zoned UC. It's an old car sales business. I've had interest from people wanting to actually rezone that back to UI. So I think, I think that's a better long-term conversation to have. I get leery on saying, let's just start rezoning a piece here and a piece there and a piece there. It becomes challenging. And part of the reason with changing the professional service requirement is in driving through the city and looking at other properties. We have a vet up here on Half Mile Road that's zoned UI, and he's already located there. If you go up by the fifth quarter, I think there's a dentist located within that one already. I mean, the reality is that we do have some businesses, even SBR Coaching on Venture Court, zoned UI that they're already there. Better for worse, they're there already. I think changing it to more of that professional service is beneficial, especially in the multi-tenant buildings. Those are the buildings you're going to see these types of uses in. You're not going to see them more in the larger industrial buildings, obviously. But we do have a scattering of multi-tenant buildings around the city, zoned industrial, that would benefit from this change. Now, you also asked where else is this allowed, and I'm trying to get to that real quickly here. Currently, professional services are permitted uses within the neighborhood office, neighborhood commercial, suburban commercial, urban commercial, and central commercial zoning districts. So those are the districts that's allowed right now. The thought of making this change wasn't to make it a permanent use, but make it that conditional use, so you still do have that level of control over it, so you don't have 8 different professional services going into an industrial zone building, so you do still have that level of control on it. That's what they're allowed right now. And that was, we did talk about rezoning, and I didn't feel it was appropriate to rezone it.
Any follow-up questions, comments?
Maybe I just comment. It's urban industrial for a reason. I can see that we have spots around the city where professional and professional services are being done. So it's kind of, I feel like we're kind of in a rock and a hard spot. So I think this is an inventive way to do it. So I guess I would support it.
Other questions or comments on the agenda item? If there's no questions or comments, a motion would be in order. Mr. Linder?
For the motion, do you need me to include the sections being modified or not?
Mr. Sarah?
Sure.
All right. This is to the Common Council, correct?
Recommendation to the Common Council.
I make a motion to recommend to the Common Council amendment to the zoning ordinance text to modify the city's zoning ordinance to allow personal or professional services as a conditional use within an urban industrial zoning district. Specific sections to be modified include 13-1-57 B2, Table 13-1-82, and 13-1-89 B3.
We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Ms. Ritter. We now have a motion and a second. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. We are now ready to open a public hearing on a conditional use permit for a proposed personal or professional service land use known as SBR Coaching to be located at 507 Bruce Street. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second? Second. A second by Mr. Horsfall. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Mr. Sayre, would you provide the background, please?
SBR Coaching is requesting a conditional use permit in the UI zoning district. The last item on the agenda allowed this request to happen. All conditional use permits require a public hearing before the Plan Commission, and this would be a recommendation to the Common Council.
Thank you. With that, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item?
Hello again. Just a couple brief comments. The property 507 Bruce Street that we're looking at, it's in a high-profile location located directly across from Fireman's Park. You're very active among residents, among athletes that are traveling down the Ironman route, among regional visitors that are participating in many of the triathlons and other events that are occurring at that location. We feel that given this high-profile location, given the existing condition, that it's suitable for the business that we're trying to have here, a cluster of multiple businesses in order to kind of create this hub for sports tourism. But we also feel that it's suitable for a conditional use to allow us in order to be able to dress it up. Obviously, being more appealing to the public and to people that are passing through. Physical appearance and aesthetics is going to be very important. We certainly know and appreciate that any major improvements outside of a little new paint colors and some of that's going to require site plan review before the Plan Commission. So we're not going to get into too many details on that, but certainly hope to make some improvements. The property between 505 and 507 Bruce Street is 1.8 acres. Between the proposed cluster of businesses, there'll be a mix of kind of more your traditional industrial storage, where we'll be needing that much acreage. That's part of the justification for looking at this location and a larger historical industrial building is that we need something that's a little bit bigger, something that has high ceilings, more wide open area, has the outdoor storage, so that we can facilitate having this cluster and really make it a destination for the region. We feel that, being that high profile location and the quarry just being in a high visibility location is going to be a tremendous asset, and it's going to allow, all of these individual businesses to flourish that much more and allow SBR Coaching, along with the few others, to put on some fantastic regional events and really enhance the sports tourism for the city. So.
Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak on this agenda item?
Jessica, again, SBR. I think I'll just give a little bit more detail on the vision and everything that we have had with this. Very long story short, this has been a 5-year plan I've been working at with different locations and going all over the place, and circled back to this location that I looked at 4 years ago, primarily because it has become a hub of Verona for cycling, triathlon, and everything that we do. SBR is in its 9th year right now. We used to be on Main Street, but moving a little bit more on the outside routes and having more of the space that we have has allowed us to grow. We've grown a bike shop out of it. We're definitely more on the quieter low end of things, more appointment-based. We don't have, tons and hundreds of people coming in and out. We're very focused. One of our goals the past couple of years has been trying to be the location center for all these different people coming from out of town, because we do know there has been problems, and we want to be that traveling center for people to come in. We tried working with the city and creating some signs and things like that, so we want to be that hub. We're working with different businesses in Verona, with the Holiday Inn right now as well, to create a place that when these people come in from Chicago and Minnesota, they have a place to base camp out of. Alleviate the parking issues that there has been, and I think we've successfully done some of that with Fireman's Park. We utilize Fireman's Park a lot. We work really well with Angie Lucas at the Verona Pool right now, and we're working on a lot of different things, and we want to work with the city more and all the things that we can bring into it with the economic development and the revenue that can be brought in, and the projections that we have for how much revenue does come in to it. But having the ability to be in that location, we are sitting right in the middle of where everybody comes. I've started biking here in Verona starting in 2000, and that was the outlet. That was way before Ironman even existed or ever came through that. And I know that has spurred it, for better or worse, for some people's eyes, but it's definitely here for a long time, and a lot of people utilize Verona. We really want to make sure that we give the positive energy to Verona and places around that, because it's a very talked about place, and be there for people, offer the services and everything that people need for anything like that. So any questions more specifically on our goals? That's kind of a 30,000 foot view, obviously, but I can give more detail if you need.
Are there any questions from the Plan Commission members? Ms. Ritter?
I also sit on the Parks Commission, and I know in the past that we've worked with some outside groups that visit who base camp at Fireman's Park on Saturdays, and that's when some youth soccer sports and things like that are going on. Can you talk a little bit about what your plans would be for parking on your site, or your utilization of street parking or the park?
Sure, and we do know parking was an issue. People were using the Fireman's Park as a park and ride more so, and we did our greatest effort to reach out to all these people that we knew, coaches out of town, that's not a park and ride. They need to park. We try to get them to alleviate and actually park up on our street, up on Venture Court. I think we put a sign up there, and I know they are parking on the street right now. but are aware that people do rent out, you know, for soccer games and, you know, receptions and things like that. But with so much space that we do have, with the 1.8 acres, we do have plenty of space to alleviate and have people park in our parking lot and have maybe them base camp from us versus you in the park to alleviate, so the park can be open for more things like that. And we've been trying to do that, but to the best of our ability of us being a couple blocks away, it's been very difficult because people are very drawn to that area, and that's why we feel like if we can be there, we can actually help out with that. And I just sent an email to Dave a couple days ago and try to communicate that, you know, this is kind of what we're trying to do, so hopefully we can work together on helping that and get the message out to people in the right way. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Mr. Linder?
And kind of follow up to that. So your goal, the people that come on Saturdays and park there to go biking, you want them to park in your lot then in the future?
We
That's
would,
your goal?
like to, yeah. And because there's so many that do come out, that there may be overflow, but if we can direct them to alleviate that stress on that street during, you know, it's like 4 months out of the year and gets very, very crazy. But if we can give them some direction, I don't feel like it's grown so fast and and we're kind of behind it right now and trying to capture that. But if we have something there and say, hey, you need to base camp from here, and however as structured as we need to make that, you know, we're willing to provide that for people and alleviate that too for parking.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments for Jessica? Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie, I saw your hand up, so we're just asking people to sign in, please, and introduce yourself when you speak, and give your address, please.
My name's Charlie Egan. I'm general manager of the Holiday Inn Express here in Verona. One of only
The
two.
award-winning Holiday Inn Express.
I try not to do that, but so I also serve on the chamber board and the TOT, the Transient Occupancy Tax Committee, and then I'm president of the Greater Madison Hotel and Lodging Association. I serve on the board for the Greater Madison Convention and Visitors Bureau also, and I'm here to support what SBR Coaching is looking to do, because I think this is going to be really great for developing Verona as a biking destination. We already there's a huge potential for biking tourism into Verona. We've already seen the growth the past 5 or 6 years, quadruple at least. So exactly what the things that she's talking about doing, destination marketing for Verona as a biking destination, she's hitting the mark. You know, it's a bullseye. I mean, that's exactly what I see as a big opportunity, and I think that what they're proposing doing is right in there. So I highly support it, and I think that in terms of delivering more tax dollars to the city, if they're successful, I think that's what can be delivered here. Overnight visitor tax is good for everybody, and I think that the partnership that we already have with Jessica and SBR is really fantastic, and I think that if the timing of this, the sooner the better. The sooner we can get this approved and moving forward, and the sooner that we can help them with their plan is going to be good for everybody. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Linder? You sure can.
How many people on a weekend are typically staying at your hotel that are bikers?
During the summertime, I would say last year we probably had upwards of 150 to 200 room nights that were biking related. In fact, one of Jessica's competitors, I guess what you'd call it, would be a group out of Chicago called Quest Coaching and Vision Quest Coaching, and they actually brought in 50 or over 50 people that stayed 2 nights, and they used their base camp out of our hotel, and they actually biked up from Chicago and spent 2 nights in our hotels. I mean, that's just one group once a year. They came up twice last year. So if we can, expand what they're doing, duplicate it with what Jessica's talking about doing, I mean, it's a tremendous opportunity. I mean, if we can take the control of those kind of groups and give it to somebody local, through the use of their facility, I mean, it's amazing potential. I mean, and then we, spring, fall, there's a lot of opportunity for that type of group. So, 5 or 6 years ago, the answer would have probably been 20. But, so it's just, it's really grown leaps and bounds, so there's a lot of opportunity there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Brad Steiner. I'm here as an alderman of District 3, also a member of the Park and Rec. Thank you, Ms. Ritter, for mentioning that concern, because that's why I'm here. We've had serious issues with people who are paying taxes here, taking their children down to Fireman's Park to do an activity, and finding the whole park filled with these people that are enjoying biking around our city. Now, I support what they're doing, and I'm happy to hear they do have some parking available in Ventura, but I just want it to be known publicly that there are constituents that are very concerned about this issue, because they do not like it, and they do call me to tell me somebody's parking in my parking spot when I take my child to the soccer match. And we need to either enlarge the parking by buying more land down there, or really try to control this somehow. Mr. Walker is very concerned about this also. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
My name is Chrissy Ilgen. I live in Madison, and Jessica has been coaching me for 3-4 years now. And before I knew about SBR, I didn't know about Miller's Market. I didn't know about the Sauzier. I didn't know about the really cool eyeglass place that's on the corner of Paoli and M. So even when I'm not going to SBR, I come on the weekends to get stuff from Miller's Market, to go to Sauzier. And I can also attest that I have friends who live in Platteville, Janesville, Edgerton, who come to SBR and also go to Sauzier, Miller's Market, and the other shops around here. So not only is it people from Chicago, from other places coming in, people who are local will be able to come and it'll get more visibility to buy things more frequently. And another note, in terms of parking, whether SBR is there or not, I think the parking's going to be a problem. Whether SBR is in Verona or not, people from Chicago, from all over come and they don't know. They just don't know. So if SBR moves to Bruce Street, there definitely would be better visibility for people who know, who are there on Saturday biking, saying, don't park there. It's just not a thing to do. There are soccer matches and things going on. So SBR is not causing the parking problem, but they can definitely help alleviate the parking problem, because they'll know if they're in that area, they'll be able to tell people this is not a cool thing to do, park in our lot. That's basically it.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Anyone else that wishes to speak? Anyone else? Seeing none, I would accept the motion then to close the public hearing. Oh, excuse me, before we close the public hearing, we had 2 emails that I want to make sure get read into the record that were provided to us this evening. So Adam, if you would read those, please.
Sure. In your packet, there were 3 letters, I believe, and then I received an email and a letter after those packets went out. So the first email is from Carrie Johnson. Just wanted to drop you a quick note regarding the property usage change that will be discussed at the public city meeting tonight, which I won't be able to attend, but like to add my 2 cents for what it's worth. Allowing this property to be zoned as a proposed use would be beneficial not only to SBR coaching and training, but also to other businesses in Verona, as it would increase spending by those attending classes, using the facility, etc. This would be a great way for people to explore Verona and pass it along to their connections, a great way to advertise what Verona has to offer. Thanks for your time. The letter I received was from Joanne Peck. I would like to encourage the City Board of Verona to allow the 507 Bruce Street Verona property that is currently zoned for industrial to be amended for commercial usage. This will allow SBR to move to this location. SBR attracts clientele from surrounding communities who value its services. When they are in Verona, they spend money on gas, food, etc., which helps the City of Verona overall. Personally, I have traveled from Madison to Verona for more than 5 years solely to attend classes at SBR. Living in Madison, I only traveled to Verona specifically for SBR. While there, it is a closer facility where I could go for biking classes. The quality of services offered by Jessica Laufenberg and SBR unmatched. I often purchase coffee, breakfast, or gas while I'm there. SBR attracts clientele with higher than average incomes that may not otherwise visit Verona. I strongly recommend that you allow the 507 Bruce Street Verona property to be zoned for commercial purposes, and then she provides her contact information for questions.
Thank you, Adam. I would now accept the motion to close the public hearing. We have a motion by Ms. Ritter. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Heinzen. All in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Again, if there were action here this evening, it would be a recommendation to the Common Council. What is your pleasure? Mr. Horsfall?
So is the plan just to work within the existing buildings? Okay. So you're not going to remodel or nothing like that and
No,
just,
keep the same floor plan print and then paint it, re-landscape it, make it look really great, try to coincide that with
Jessica, would you mind, just so that the people at home can hear, if you wouldn't mind?
Yes, part of our plans would be to work with all the existing area there to give it a makeover. The building itself is great. It's set up very well for us. It needs a new roof. Definitely some landscaping, some better paint, maybe architecturally do some wood and steel to it, but not make it, we want to still let to be blend, but clean it up basically is what we want to do, is just take a big makeover. It's a great place, great area. Just make it better. So no floor plan changes or anything like that.
Okay. Mr. Linder?
Will the bicycle place go too, with you?
Yes,
The
it will.
Rocket.
That's part of one of the tenants that will be there. And it's more of a smaller base, we're more one-on-one base, but we are open for regular business. We're not a gigantic big box store whatsoever. Our whole goal has been more personal, professional, quiet, service-based for our clientele that are looking for that. But yes, we'd be able to service all those people coming into that area for them there as well.
Ms. Ritter?
Back on this parking issue, I'm sorry, but can you describe, for the folks at home and for some in the audience who may not know, can you describe what the parking lot and the parking area looks like now? And do you plan on doing any changes to that?
Did you grab it? Were you able to take a snapshot? It is up there. If you can look at it, so right now, when you're looking at the building, right behind it is a bunch of vehicles, a fence, and then just a bunch of I would call a junkyard area. So that it's probably not junk to them, but basically just making that all parking behind there from all of that. Pulling in on the right-hand side, because I know the auto shop is right next door to that, but expanding, we haven't planned out how many parking spots we can get in there and stuff like. We like to have green space for people to sit afterwards, cool down, things like that. So our place has been a third place for people. First place is home, second place is work. We are a third place. I have to kick these people out because I got to get work done. They're having coffee, they're stretching, they're socializing. An hour later, they're still sitting there. So we really want to make it the place where people are going to still, hang out and be there, and they feel comfortable and can socialize on that aspect of it, but definitely have outside green space and like patio space, things like that, and make it friendly for anybody biking by. They can get water out of the faucet. They can walk their dogs there and get water if they need to, things like that.
And does the property go back to, it looks like maybe there's a tree line there?
Yes, I believe that's the back end of it.
Okay.
So it goes pretty deep.
Okay.
It just doesn't look that, from the road, it doesn't look like that because there's just so much stuff back there, but that would all be cleared out for straight parking in the back. No parking in the front. The whole front would just look definitely more landscaped, aesthetically pleasing. Looking at that one garage door on the right-hand side, if you look at it, would be open and people could walk in and bike in, and for services, and on the right-hand side, some potential outside green space to sit and hang out, but all the parking would be put in the back.
And then my final question might be for you. If they wanted to make improvements to the parking area, is that something that would have to come through us, or how does that, what's that
Mr. Sarah?
process?
Yeah, from a parking standpoint, that wouldn't have to come through the plan commission unless you wanted to see it again. A lot of that, what's out there right now is heavily compacted gravel. That's why just weeds are growing there. So it's been used as parking in the past. I mean, I would look at it from the standpoint, as long as everything met the zoning requirements, I'd be fine with that. One of the things that we're going to take a close look at is that it is in the floodplain. So we'll need to take a look at how much, if there's any asphalt going in. I think we've talked about up to 20,000 square feet. We'd allow 20,000 square feet of asphalt, and then beyond that would take some additional permitting as well. But I don't believe it would have to go back to plan commission unless you guys would want to see it. Major changes to the building beyond painting and just cleaning up what's out there right now would have to come back.
Thank you.
Mr. Heinzen?
Sure. Adam, can we make as a condition the opportunity, or I guess the requirement, that a portion of the parking lot is in fact, open to the public?
Mr. Sarah?
I think you could encourage it. I mean, it's going to be tough to enforce, especially if, people are, I mean, it's up to, obviously, she said that she wants to open it up for that type of clientele. And I think, you can condition it that to strongly encourage that. So I don't know how enforceable you can say to, how that would be. It'd be difficult to enforce in the sense of if someone parked on the street, would that be an issue or not? And, but I think you could say for events, when events are held out there that SBR is sponsoring or a part of, that their parking lot needs to be open for that event parking. I think that'd be one of the ways of doing it, at least trying to, anything that they're a part of, that they actually have to open up for that. I'd be a little leery on just saying public parking, but I think anything that they're partnering on or working on, they would have to open it up on that, definitely. I think that's reasonable.
Right, because like I said, we're a niche facility and professional service for what we do, so we don't have 200 people every single day, 365 days a year. It's just going to be that mainstream of the summer, where if we know who's coming into town. You make it very clear to them and try to jump ahead and say, this is designated parking per us with the city behind it, and we're only allowed 50 road slot. We could work together to make it, when we worked with the city a couple years ago about creating a sign and things like that, we wanted to say you can come park at our facility, but we couldn't do that, obviously, just because it was the city, but encourage them to come park up on Venture Court. But it was so hard to drag people up there. But I think we have enough space that wouldn't want the public parking, but definitely we'd be very advocacious and encouraging people. If we see them park out there, hey, we got 30 spots in here, we really encourage you to please tell your friends that we want you to park here, because then you can use our spot in our place for services or use a toilet, things like that.
Mr. Horsfall?
One other question. You mentioned people stopping and just resting and stuff like that. You're not going to offer, I wouldn't say alcohol, but selling drinks and stuff like that, right?
Like,
so it's just going to be
tequila bombs and stuff?
Yeah, and that it could be a moneymaker.
Yeah, that happens after Saturday.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing any alcoholic sales or anything like that. I mean, if that ever changed, we would definitely go through our process, but no, it'd be people go out and they leave and go on the loop, the Ironman loop, do their ride. When they're done, they might want to sit outside and, refresh and stretch before they jump in their car and leave and things like that. So it'd be more on that.
Okay.
That
When you mentioned that, I
line of
didn't
things.
know if you were thinking, hey, there's an opportunity to serve something, food
No, I mean, if we
or
ever,
something.
yes, has it conversed about that? Yes, but if that ever went down that road, we would go down the appropriate channels for that. But that's not in our vision,
Okay.
no.
Thanks.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Linder?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the city council a conditional use permit for proposed personal or professional service land use known as SBR Coaching to be located at 507 Bruce Street.
We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second?
Did you want to add the other?
We're raising our hand over here.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Greg.
If we'd be able to have the conditional use permit apply to 505 and 507,
Okay.
that'd be,
Can I amend that to say 505 to 507 Bruce Street?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Okay.
What else?
And
Prior to permit becoming valid.
the condition?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. With the condition that prior to this permit becoming valid, the common council shall approve a zoning text amendment allowing personal and professional services as a conditional use in the urban industrial zoning district.
Okay, we have a motion with the condition listed as well. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Horsfall. Questions or comments? Just, I know most people have spoken on this. When I heard about this project, I was really excited. Looking at an expansion of businesses that are currently in the city of Verona. Everywhere we go, people keep asking me all the time, how do you get all this recreational activity in Verona? We've really been known for that for a long time, and this just enhances that. We also talk about improvements and gateways to our city. I drive Bruce Street almost daily and have for several years. So I think anything we can do to make this building look a lot more appealing to the eye certainly will be welcome. And it amazes me when I see the license plates on the cars and where they're from. It's not just Verona people, it's not just Madison people that are nearby in the area. There's a lot of people coming from out of state, and not just for a short period short period of time, but for a long period of time. So I think this is just really exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to the council taking action on it next week. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. So it will be on the Common Council agenda next week, Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a public hearing on a zoning ordinance text amendment to modify the city's zoning ordinance to eliminate the maximum building coverage requirement and the true east-west orientation requirement for buildings located within the downtown design and use overlay district. Specific sections to be modified include 13-1-372, Parent 1, Parent C, Parent 2, and 13-1-372, Parent C, Parent 4H. Mr. Sayre, if you would provide the background, please.
So this is a request from the city to amend our downtown overlay district. As the mayor said, it would eliminate the maximum building coverage requirements and also would eliminate the true east-west orientation requirements. The proposed changes were recommended in the recently adopted downtown plan. The intent of eliminating the maximum building coverage was just to make it consistent with the underlying zoning district. It was confusing, it was redundant, it was cumbersome. So we got rid of that, or recommending eliminating that. The second recommendation was to eliminate the true east-west orientation requirement, which I think we've talked about at length at this commission. But once again, that was an issue with that of it was tough for developers to handle that. It wasn't really natural when you go to other cities. You don't see that type of requirement. And to be honest, nobody had a good reason to keep it. Everyone that we talked to said they couldn't make a solid argument why it was a good thing to have. So those recommendations are in there. At this time, we're recommending going forward with these two changes. There are other amendments in the downtown plan that are recommended in the future. These were the two simple ones that we could make pretty quick here. We did go through the required findings of fact and determined that yes, it does meet the ordinance requirements to amend the zoning ordinance. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council approval and adopt the amendments to the downtown design and use overlay district.
You have heard the explanation from Mr. Sayre. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on the public hearing on this agenda item? Going the third and final time, anyone that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Actually, we didn't have a motion to open the public hearing. How about the motion to open? I'm moving along too quickly here. We have a motion by Mr. Linder, seconded by Ms. Ritter, to open the public hearing. All those in favor of opening the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. So we are in the public hearing. We'll see if that brings anyone to the podium. So let me ask three times again. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak under the public hearing portion? Anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Anyone that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I would accept the motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall, seconded by Ms. Ritter. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. So we are now on agenda item 6A, which again would be a recommendation to the Common Council if we were to take action. Questions, comments, potential motions? Any questions or comments, potential motions? Mr. Linder?
I guess my question about the maximum building coverage of 40%, so redoing this would basically eliminate that, so there would be no maximum in the future?
Mr. Sarah?
There would be no maximum in the overlay district, so the underlying zoning district still has a maximum coverage, and it would just default to whatever the underlying zoning district is. So right now, when you look at it, if it's zone CC or SC, you look at the SC district, you see that requirement, then you have to go look at the overlay district and see what that requires and take the most restrictive of the two. So we're just going to get rid of the overlay district requirement and defer to the underlying zoning.
What are the other requirements for the zoning districts? Do you know what they are off the top of your head?
I could look them up off the top of my head. The CC, I know that one is, I might be 0. That's the downtown core area. Then I want to say the SC is probably about 40. I mean, it's pretty consistent with what that is. It's nothing, it's like any project that has to come in that would be zoned SC or CC would have to meet those requirements. But it's, from a process standpoint, administrative standpoint, it was just, like I said, being redundant with each other. But I can look up the requirements if you'd like to see those.
That's all right.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Horsfall?
This time, I'd like to recommend to the Common Council approve and adopt the amendments to the Downtown Design and Use Overlay District.
We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall. Is there a second? I'll second that motion. Questions, comments? Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. That will also be on the agenda for next week, Monday. Agenda item number 7 is discussion only. This is the initial site plan review and conditional use permit amendment for Epic Systems Corporation to construct a 1,500 vehicle underground parking structure located in the future campus number 5. Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Epic is requesting an initial review to construct a underground parking structure for the future Campus 5. The proposed structure will be located east of their Campus 2 and southeast of their future Campus 4. This does require, in the future, a site plan approval and also an amendment to their conditional use permit for their group development. This parking structure would be 3 stories and would contain approximately 1,500 vehicles. Most likely, it'd have the same type of configuration as Campus 4, where you might have some buildings on top of the structure, and then you'd have some buildings off the side as well. But those details are still being finalized and will be completed in the near future. From a bulk standpoint, the proposed parking structure will actually sit on 5 different parcels. The reality in this area, there's a lot of CSMs and a lot of lot lines out there. This isn't uncommon, though. I think there's a couple other campuses and a couple other buildings in that area that also straddle lot lines. City knows it's an issue. Epic knows it's a concern of the cities. Epic has offered to correct the issue, and staff has told them not yet. We're waiting for the TIF to close out. If we would basically do one large CSM and combine all the lots, it would create some administrative issues from a TIF standpoint for the city. So we've asked them to hold off on that CSM and correcting the lot line issues, and they have agreed to do that. But just wanted to make the Planning Commission aware that, yes, it will be straddling 5 lot lines. Epic realizes that, and that's something that we can resolve in the future as we go forward. Access, similar to other parking structures, access will be by underground tunnels, since it will be down 3 levels. Access from Northern Lights will be free flow as well in the future, and there will also be an access point from the north as well coming into the parking structure. Landscaping plans are not submitted, but the structure is entirely underground, so no landscaping is required. Drainage and stormwater, there is no drainage and stormwater required because it is, once again, completely underground. And from an architectural standpoint, there's no architecture review because you can't see it. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission review the submitted materials and provide feedback to the applicant. I know Epic is here tonight, and I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Dickman?
Good evening. It's good to be back here again tonight. From the time we decided to move to Verona back around 2002, there were certain things that guided the development of our campus. One, we wanted all of our U.S. employees on the Verona campus. That we haven't wavered from that, and we continue to have that as our goal. We always have wanted to have an office for each employee. In other words, no shared office. We haven't done as well on that right now. About 30 to 35% of our employees are in shared offices, so we're trying to catch up with that goal. And even with the advent of Campus 4, I'll run through a few numbers, we'll probably be behind on that goal with on the completion of Campus 4. And we always wanted virtually all of our parking for staff and guests underground or in structured lots. Our preference is underground. We didn't want any large surface lots. Well, why is that? First of all, they take a lot of land. A 1,500 car parking lot would take somewhere between 10 and 12 acres. It's about 500,000 square feet of asphalt. That creates a lot of impervious surface, creates a lot of stormwater management and other environmental challenges, and they're god-awful ugly. Plus, with the types of winter we have around here, walking to your car when it's 20 below and windy, and you've got to walk, and you came in late, and you're walking to the far end of the parking lot, that isn't very good either. So that's why we're always looking at underground facilities, and they've worked very, very well for us. Currently, we have about 6,200 employees in Verona and about 450 in Madison. So total of about 6,650 in Dane County. And we expect that number to grow. We currently have about 4,500 offices in Verona and about 4,500 underground and structured parking stalls. We also have one relatively large surface lot. It also happens to be where the UGM tent goes, and we want to get rid of that as a parking lot. But in order to do that, we have to build more underground parking. With completion of Campus 4 in 2015 and 2016, we'll have about 6,000 offices in Verona and about 6,500 underground and structured parking. If you do the math, you can see already we have more employees in Dane County than we'll have offices in Verona in 2016. And as I said, we're continuing to add employees. So we expect that by the time Campus 4 is occupied, we'll have more employees than offices. Thus, we're planning a 5th office campus. The underground parking would be for about 1,500 cars. That's comparable in size to the Campus 1 parking structure and what we started out with Campus 4. That's been expanded. You approved that, I believe, in December to add one more level. We do not anticipate that this parking structure would go to 4 levels for a whole variety of reasons. The structure is designed as we designed the Campus 4 structure to allow us to place buildings any place on the structure. We would need the parking whether we built the Campus 5 office buildings or not, because if we're doubling 35% of the offices, people have to park someplace. And while on an average day, about 80% of our people drive, you do the math, and then you throw in the number of customers that we have driving to site every day, we would be running out of parking. Due to the time it takes us to design and build such a structure, which is about a year or two, we want to start the process now, so we get ahead of it. As Mr. Sayer mentioned, the structure would be totally underground, 3 levels, have landscaping or most likely buildings or both on top of it. They'd connect to the Campus 5 buildings either directly with elevators from the structure into the buildings or with tunnels, and would probably connect back to Campus 2 with a tunnel, so that if people had their offices in Campus 2, they could still park in the Campus 5 ramp and walk over. So that's what the plan is. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have regarding these plans.
Are there any questions for Mr. Dickman? Mr. Horsfall?
Yeah, thanks. You said 80% people drive to your campus?
Yeah.
Do you have a goal to either, I mean, is 80% a good number for you, or would you prefer to see that at, more
I'd
mass
like to see
transit?
it, I'd like to see it lower. I think our addition of Route 75 about 2 years ago, I think that's the most successful new route that Madison Metro has ever put on. In fact, we increased the capacity of Route 75. We continue to work with Metro to look at other ways to increase the ridership. We've got some other ideas. Instead of runs from the central city, there's an awful lot of people that live in southwest Madison and northeast of Verona in that corridor. We'd like to see some routes, transit routes going through those, whether it's through Metro or some other means. So, our goal is to get it lower. The number who drive actually drops in the summer because of people walking and riding bikes. We have a tremendous number of people who ride bikes to work, some even in the dead of winter. I don't know how they do that, but they do. But it's not uncommon to have 300-400 people riding bikes to work during the summer. I think as you see more people, more of our employees gravitate towards the Verona area, southwest Madison, we're going to see even more bike ridership as well.
Kind of follow up.
Go ahead.
Just as a little bit off topic, but what could Verona do to encourage the bike? I mean, are roads good enough for you guys to?
They're good enough, but I think we're working with the city. I know Mr. Sayer, Mr. Burns, and Mr. Gunlock are involved in this as we're looking at the development of improvement of Nine Mound Road, of the year development in the northwest quadrant from around PD&M, the connection of bike trails from southwest Madison and coming down along Highway M across through the city or parallel to Highway PD and hooking in, I think is a critical element of that. I know that's the one thing I hear continually from our employees is a better connection from Highway M and that area back to the campus, and we're working on and looking at those road improvements and how to do it. And I think the design of the PD and M intersection, in fact, I believe it has a bike trail underpass on that, which would facilitate that getting across that intersection. And then if we have the connection from PD and M conveniently and safely back to the campus area and the western side of the city, I think would be a great help.
Thanks.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Linder?
So is this, do I make the assumption that this area is also rock and there'll be a lot of blasting for this?
It's not as rocky as where we are right now. Right now, we are in the hardest area of rock in that whole area. In fact, Bruce or Nathan, I believe as you move to the east, you start getting in gravel. So I don't think it's nearly as rocky as especially what we experienced with Campus 2 and with Campus 4. Campus 4 is the hardest rock we've run into.
Go ahead, Mr. Linder.
One more question. So is there anything special about this parking ramp compared to the others? And
No.
Pretty much same as everything?
No, same thing.
Go ahead, Mr.
Just one-
Horsfall.
Have you learned anything from the first two parking structures that you've incorporated into this, or the first two worked, or three, whatever it was, have worked so well that it's just,
I think we've learned on each one. I think Campus 2 ramp having the entrances the way they are and having a more of a square structure versus the sort of the T structure we have on Campus 1 Campus 1 works, Campus 2 is much more efficient. Farm campus with the tunnels in and tunnels out, and coming in on different levels, and free flow in, free flow out has worked very, very well. We do learn on everything we build. We find out what works very well. One little thing, I mean, the first ramp, we didn't put in sand separators in our, which we should have. We've retrofitted that ramp for sand separators in the drainage system. That was an enhancement that went in Campus 2, so we would never make that mistake again. But by and large, they've worked very, very well.
Other questions or comments? Again, we have, this is discussion only this evening. Not seeing anything else. Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Nothing else on that agenda item. We will move to number 8, which is discussion and possible action regarding preliminary plat for Hometown Grove to create 35 single-family parcels, 20 zero-lot line parcels, and 5 outlots located at 845 Kimball Lane. Mr. Sayre, would you provide the background, please?
Sure. This project was here a few months ago for the conceptual review of the plan development process. This is currently the preliminary plat step of the process, and they hope to come back in the near future with the general development plan, rezoning, and then final plat. The request tonight is to plat 35 single-family lots and 20 zero-lot lines lots. The zero-lot line townhouses will be located in the western part of the project, as shown in the dark black lines. The existing townhouse building along Kimball Lane would also be picked up and moved as part of this project. So the townhouse, townhouse would be picked up and moved behind the existing townhouses that would be stacked kind of in north-south orientation. And in the future, they'd build 4 zero-lot line townhouses as well. The change from the condo to the townhouse is mainly due to financing issues. Banks have become excessively tight in lending to condominiums, and one of the ways to kind of circumvent that, the issues with the lending institutions, is to make them zero-lot line. So that the structures itself wouldn't change at all. It's just the form of ownership would be changing. That would be more conducive to banks and lenders. The single-family homes would be located along the other areas of the project. Lots 1 through 15 along the edge of Street A and Street B here. Those would be front-loaded lots with front-loaded garages. Lot sizes would range from approximately 5,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet, with the majority being closer to that 4,500 square foot mark. One of the concerns that staff has raised with this, for these lots, are the shared driveways, and those are on lot 6 and lot 7 in this corner, and also on lots 13 and 14 in the southwest corner. The applicant is proposing shared driveways due to the small width of these lots. Staff has expressed some concerns in the past about how narrow these lots are, and a solution that the applicant has offered is to provide this shared driveway. Staff believes in concept this works, but it does create some long-term maintenance issues from the future property owners. In general, people don't like those. So we're recommending that the applicant eliminate the shared driveway concept and just make the lots wider. We think that'd be a reasonable solution. Lots 16 through 35 in the middle here, those would be your alley-loaded lots. Those are the garages would be in the rear of the project, or in the site, and the house would be facing the street without the garage facing the road. The alleys in here would be private outlots owned and maintained by the homeowners association. So those would not be city right away. The roadways themselves, this has been talked about a lot at length, would be 56 feet of right-of-way. It would contain 32 feet of curb-to-curb pavement. A typical city street is usually 66 and contains 36 feet, so this would be 4 feet smaller of actual roadway asphalt. And the reason for that is this is a more of your traditional type development. They do have smaller streets in it as well. And in looking at the traffic patterns and circulation in here, the reality is this is basically only serving the people living in this neighborhood. These aren't any through streets. There would also contain sidewalks on both sides of the street, and there would also still be 6-foot terraces on both sides as well. And they're also proposing some decorative street lights in this neighborhood too. One of the items that staff will work out with the applicant is parking. Most likely parking would be restricted in the winter months because these are 32-foot wide or 32 curb-to-curb streets. We feel that in the winter it could pose some challenges, and it's probably best just to restrict parking to one side in the winter. Unlike the current requirement where it's overnight parking is restricted, we'd restrict it during the day as well. Applicant is proposing 2 open space outlots. We have an outlot in the corner here in the kind of on the eastern side. On your desk there were some conceptual park plans submitted. This would be a private park that would have to be maintained and would be owned by the association. The applicant's proposing some playground equipment, benches, trees, landscaping. In the other outlot in the corner, I believe that'd just be open space, possibly an area for people to run their dogs, throw a ball to an animal and whatnot. And then obviously we have the alleyways as well. These would be outlots, and that would be for, like I said, owned and maintained by the homeowners association. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission review the preliminary plat and provide a recommend to the Common Council for approval of it with the condition that the shared driveways for lots 6 and 7 and lots 13, 14 shall be removed, and the lot width shall be increased to a minimum of 60 feet. One other item that was submitted in your packet was a draft conceptual general development plan. If you have any comments or feedback on that as well, the applicant would be happy to hear those if you have any comments on the actual written description, but there would be no action on that item.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. We are open for discussion and comments, potential motions. Mr. Heinzen?
I have a couple questions for Adam. Is there any other place in Verona right now that has a similar, I guess, a homeowners association that takes care of street plowing, or, I guess in this event, in this case here, it's the alley, or it has to maintain parks that are, I guess, owned by the developer?
Mr. Sayre?
I'm not aware of any alley situations. Some of the private streets in the city are in the Prairie Oaks neighborhood, so kind of north of where Papa Murphy's is, and there's a Chinese restaurant there, so that some of those streets in there are private streets.
And how about parks?
Not aware of any.
I'm not aware of any. I know at one point there was one talked about in the Prairie Oaks project, which is no longer there, but I'm not aware of any that we've actually approved.
Do you know, and maybe this is a question for the applicant, but the trash collection, what the plan is with respect to that?
Yeah, the trash collection would be put in the alleyways, and the trucks would be able to get down there. I know Ron Reeder's taken a look at that and feels confident that that won't be an issue. Alleys would be, I believe, 24 feet wide, so there'd be sufficient space to get a truck down there. There shouldn't be any issues.
Mr. Horsfall?
What's lot 48 through 55? What are those?
Sorry, 48 through 55 would be the zero lot line lots. You can kind of see it on your screen here, but south of where those dark townhouses are.
So the front,
Yeah, those would be townhouses in that area. So what they're going to do is they're proposing to pick up the existing townhouse, the 1-4 unit that's kind of out there right now, and move it to lots 48 through 51, and in the future build on the remaining 4 lots, or zero lot line lots.
so how are those lots getting accessed by Street A? Is that, I'm looking at this preliminary plat.
Yeah, you'd have a private drive coming in off the either the middle or off the backside there. So the existing townhouses out there have they have garages in the back, and there's an existing drive off the back, so that would just be a common area that they'd all have to maintain, similar to the situation they have right now.
Okay.
So what they're basically doing, instead of calling it condominiums, they're going to call it zero lot line for more of the lending concerns that are out there of trying to get financing for homeowners trying to refinance or people trying to buy these, because right now people, they can't get lending because it's a condominium and the project is not complete.
So even lot 49 that has, if I can read that, 2,670 square feet, am I reading that correctly?
Yes, so a zero lot line lot is basically just the wall to wall. So you have a unit. So instead of condoing unit, you have a lot line that has basically is straddling that wall, the common wall between the two units. So instead of calling it a condominium unit, it's called a zero lot line. And it, like I said, it's better for banks.
Go ahead, Mr. Oswald.
And again, this is, I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm not going to vote for this because I believe that the lots are too small. And I've expressed this opinion before, but I'm the only one that does that, so I'm not going to vote for it.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Linder?
Do you have any more sheets that don't have so many lines? I'm having a little trouble just following all this, because even that shows me a little more than this. Do you guys have any more information? I know you talk about different spots on the alleys are a little different than the other ones, and I don't know if you have any more information. It helps a little bit. Yeah, it doesn't show the buildings on this one though either. Okay. I guess one of the things I'm concerned about is a private park. I know it's part of homeowners association. I mean, it'd be the only one in the city. I guess that'd be one of my concerns, that it wouldn't be public. Is there a reason for that?
We tailored the homeowners association after Jeff Haynes's property on Forward Drive in Madison, and we looked at several others that their homeowners association were created to be able to handle the maintenance, independent maintenance. This will be a split development because the single family, the zero lot line homes, the townhomes will have different service than the homeowners will, but it'll be broken down because at the present time, the zero lot line homes, which are condominiums, the homes will be rezoned, but they currently have their lawns cut and the grounds maintenance and the snow removal. And in this case, they will continue to do that, and we'll write the contract so that the homeowners association monitors the grass cutting of those zero lot line homes, and then the snowplow contract is written to be able to not only plow their parking lots and garage entrances and their sidewalks, but also the alleyways and the public street sidewalks. It'll be under contract, administered by the homeowners association.
But what about the park? I mean,
And also the park. The park will be maintained by probably, most likely, a landscaping firm that will most likely be written into the grass cutting contract and be handled that way. So they will be on site to cut grass in both the outlots, in back of the zero lot line, and then also the park.
I guess what I'm getting at is, what's the reason behind making the park private instead of keeping it public?
The city.
Good. Mr. Sarah?
Yeah, staff has talked about that, and I think the issue for the city is it's probably a maintenance issue. It's going to be a lot of work to get our equipment in there, and the reality is that the park is only going to serve the people living in this neighborhood. It's not going to serve the surrounding community. It's more of a private, tucked away amenity for this neighborhood. I think the bigger issue, though, was just a cost issue of just to unload the equipment, to maintain it, fix it. It's just not worth our money. So our recommendation to the applicant from the get-go was to have these be private.
I'm thinking more, not so much grass stuff as replacing the equipment on there. At some point, it's going to have to be replaced. So that's the homeowners and
Sure.
part of that. That'll be written into, I assume, it gets replaced every,
It will be.
I don't know if you by years or by deemed time to change them by the homeowners association. I guess I don't know how you write that in.
Actually, I'm not real familiar with the maintenance of the playground gyms, but it'll be professionally handled. And we'll have to write that into the homeowners association. But again, the homeowners association will be staffed with the homeowners. So, once the developer has reached, I think it's 75% of the homes, then it'll be completely handled by the homeowners association, which will, with 35 homeowner lots and 20 other zero lot line owners, that's a pretty sizable number of people that'll have a very solid homeowner association. And it's the same way that this is not a new concept, so we're not trying to create the wheel. We have some very good examples throughout the community that have worked very well. Like I had mentioned in the very beginning, Linden Park is a real nice example. You drive through there and it's well maintained and their parks are kept nice, and their association takes care of those. Also out in the Middleton area, they've got. We're not having to recreate the wheel. We've got some good examples, and we are currently in the process of writing the homeowners association as we speak. The zero lot line homes and areas will be maintained by actually, instead of, our council said that rather than creating a homeowners association within a homeowners association, they're writing shared maintenance agreements between the buildings. So 6 people, and that's the most we'll have, will be able to administer the maintenance of that building as far as the exterior and roofs and that is concerned, and those maintenance agreements are already being drafted. Then they will be a part of the large homeowners association, of which those shared units will have a different fee structure because they'll be handling grass cutting and also the snow removal.
Do you know how much the fees or condo fees will be, or the homeowners fees will be?
Typically, the similar type of developments have been about $100 a month. So, and I don't see that there should be a big difference to that. Again, the zero lot line documents will be written so that each one of the owners will then maintain the exterior and the interior of the lots. Unlike condominium associations where the condominium would take care of the exterior. Mm-hmm. But we will write it so that the exterior landscaping, pruning, plantings, grass will be the association's responsibility. I have incidentally met with each one of the existing owners, and I've submitted an approval letter that each one of those people are in favor of rezoning to zero lot lines. Very favorable results. Their biggest concern was being sure that the building, as it presently is brought up to the standards that they want. There was a couple of dead trees on the lot that people said, well, if I'm going to own this property, I'd like the trees, replaced, and that's what the developer has put that into the development costs to bring those up to maintenance standards.
Will this be like open development for different developers can come in and build stuff?
We are planning on opening these up. That's correct. Okay. We do maintain that we will keep a reasonable amount to be able to build with our own construction company, but we are going to open them up. So if an individual would want to come out and purchase one lot, he would have a choice of who he would build to. Now, the standards for the construction are written into the GDP, which you have copies of at the present time. So we'll be reviewing those at the next meeting, I believe. So.
And one of the things that you had mentioned at a prior meeting was that it would be open to other builders, and that, yes, they'd have to live up to those standards, but that would provide for some difference in appearance of some of the buildings as well, because there'd be different builders. Which
We're hoping so, yes.
Right. I'm
yes.
sorry, Jack?
Yeah, I think that's a good feature. I like the idea of having a little different variety. In general, I understand Mr. Horsfald's concerns. It's a little different than we've done before in the city. I've seen these in Madison, and a lot of them are very nice, and they fit a niche for some single parents or some new families. And I think this is a good spot to kind of give it a test, and I will pull for it.
Nice.
Mr. Heinzen, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. We've built into this project the sales of the existing condominium and in hopes that we can meet the affordable housing requirement that really is needed in the area. Those, as the rental leases expire, we will be repairing, upgrading them, and putting them on the market for sale. And right now, we're figuring we're probably in the 160 to 185 to maybe 200 for the biggest ones. But that's today affordable housing. That's entry level. And those are, the people that are living there are really enjoying the ones that they have there. The reason for the zero lot lines in the back of the outlot 2 was mainly because Adam wanted us to be able to identify those. We are going to have to resurvey that once the foundation is in place, because on a zero lot line survey or development, you actually have to split the common wall. And we just felt it was going to be real difficult to be able to try to locate that foundation exactly on pre-existing lines. So we left, I think I made a note that we reserved the right to, we're going to plant the building as best we can on the zero lot lines, but then we may have to alter it a little bit, and our engineering staff is ready to do that. So,
Mr. Hanson, I'm sorry.
Sure, thank you. I do have a few questions for you, and I say at the outset here that Mr. Horsfall's concern about the small lot sizes is starting to get into my head as well a little bit here. And so can you tell me, I guess to step back and to remind me, some of the current buildings that are there, combination of condo and apartments?
I guess I didn't understand that.
Sure. You had originally intended, as I understand it at least, that the buildings that are there right now, the ones that are
Yes, okay.
should be condos, are a combination of some are condos and some are apartments.
Well, it was always intended to be developed as condominiums. But when the existing owner purchased the property,
Right.
they couldn't sell those condominiums, so we rented them to be able to create, and that's what they are actually recorded as condominiums, but they're rented.
Okay. And can you do you know what each of those is paying right now for their condominium association on a monthly basis?
I think it's 105.
Okay. Would you anticipate that the homes would have to pay more than that?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't think so. Because I think the only thing we have to do is maintain the alleyways for any kind of maintenance and also for snow removal.
Okay.
I guess we had some lengthy discussions since we were here last about the details that you folks have brought up. One of the issues was the street light system that we would put in there. And we've been in contact with Jeff Nelson of Alliant Energy. He's the representative around here to understand how they represent themselves and how they service Verona. And as we understand it, Alliant maintains most of the street lighting system and maintains it in the Verona area. And they do have light posts that are decorative, and I think that Jeff and was it Ron Reeder have been in contact and in communicating, and it's our understanding that we'll be able to provide a decorative type of a light system through that, designed and maintained by Alliant. So,
Okay.
any other questions I do have? And I think some of the things you're concerned about are actually design questions on this type of community, and I've invited Ron Kloss, who has designed many of these, to be here today, and I'd like to have you guys refer to some of the things that he has to say.
And I think that'd be very helpful, and I appreciate that. Can I ask you a couple questions first, though,
Sure.
before we do that? You identified, I guess, Linden Park as similar or analogous to this development. And do you know with respect to that one, how much the homeowners association fees are?
I do not.
Okay. Is that information that is readily,
get it.
you can get that kind of information?
Sure.
That would be helpful. Do you know how small the lots are in Linden Park?
They're comparable, and
About 4,000?
Since Ron laid that one out, I can refer that to him, and I think he can address that for you.
Okay. Do you know how much the homes in Linden Park have been sold for?
They're in the 250 to 275 range.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Help kind of describe some of the similar type of traditional neighborhood designs that you and your firm have put together in the area.
Right, Ron Kloss, D'Onofrio, Kaki and Associates. And we have done similar plats in the area, and mainly for Viridian Homes. They're a big client of ours. They do this kind of product in certain areas. It's, of course, not for everybody, and it's not intended for a big home. These are small lots, small homes. So it's that kind of market. And so it takes a specific kind of house and homeowner. The one thing I did want to address while I had the chance was the staff's concern about the shared driveways. Once again, we have seen that in other cases. It's not common, but we have done it. In fact, there's a couple of duplex condos adjacent to this project that are sharing a driveway. And I believe it's working well for them. In this particular case, the 4 lots that Adam pointed out are actually the 4 biggest lots in the project. But because of the shape of the roads, they have narrow frontage. And there certainly have been other cul-de-sac lots here in the city and elsewhere without a lot of frontage either. So that's why we thought maybe in this particular case, a shared driveway would work for those 4 lots. Once you get in and on the lot, again, it's a very nice size. If we had to go to a minimum frontage, those lots would become disproportionately large for this neighborhood. So that's why we had proposed that solution and would ask the city to consider that. And it's not really it does become a homeowner's item to own and maintain and work it out between them. And we think that can be done.
Thanks, Ron. Go ahead, Ms. Ritter.
Is it the intention for these to be owner occupied, or do you foresee these as being a rental or a mix? Owner occupied. Now, is that going to be in the contract with the sale of the home?
Chuck, if you wouldn't mind, get the podium, please.
I don't know if we can write into an R1 sales contract whether or not we can write into a association that the homes be rented or not. I'm thinking of, say, a snowbird or an empty nester that might rent it. But I think definitely these are single-family owned homes. This is not a rental community by any means.
Okay.
So, I mean, it would be the same as that. I don't know if I could restrict you from renting your house if you took, say, a leave of absence or went across, you know.
And maybe that's a homeowners association issue. I'm not quite sure, but my concern is that if this community becomes more of a renters community, that collecting homeowners association fees and all of that could become problematic if the owners aren't actually occupying, and then if the snow removal isn't happening or if those bills aren't getting paid, the people that are living there would be renters and not the owners. So, you know, there's a lot of just different moving parts with this kind of setup.
Well, we have a homeowners association in we're in a rural development with 20 lots, and we have a homeowners association. We pay minimum fees, and doesn't seem to be a problem. However, we don't have a maintenance requirement like we do have here with an alley. But I guess we've been there for 20 years with
With this kind of density?
Pardon?
With this kind of density?
No, it's a much smaller density. The lots are acres and above, but still, it's a functioning homeowners association, and I think it's the same way with this. There's many condominium associations that operate very well this direction. This is a lot less dense than a condominium association is. I'm the president of a condo association that we have in a vacation spot in the north, and it's more of a problem then because they're not always occupied. So you're dealing with people that are out of state and they come here and maybe spend a weekend or two, and so but it's functioned extremely well, and it's a matter of I guess our board. We've got a good board, and we are self-managed. And we've never had a problem with it, so this is the 10th year we've done that, so I don't see that as being a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I did drive through this area this past weekend to take a look at it, and I think that, and I've seen these types of developments on the west side of Madison, and I think the location and the homes around it would, it'd work very well. I am concerned a little bit about how many we're trying to pack in to this site, but I'm interested in seeing some of the fine details.
We've had very good response initially from those in construction that are interested in building in Verona, and they were more as interested in knowing that they could be open and they could build on the lots. So we're real confident that this could be a 2 to 3 year project and fill up and be a really nice community.
On the issue of fees, if what you're saying is that they'd be only owner-occupied lots. In the event that they weren't, it's still ultimately it's the responsibility of the owner.
That's correct.
To handle the fee. So
That's correct.
I don't see the payment of the fee as a real issue. That's the neighborhood association matter to deal with.
That's correct.
Other questions, other comments? I mean, some of the concerns that we're hearing tonight is what we've heard in the past as well. I think most of us would prefer lots that were larger, but we're talking about a property that's very unique. And certainly through the discussions that we've had to this point, I think we've seen improvements. And certainly I will support the project. Other questions or comments? Again, if we were to take action this evening, this would be a recommendation to the Common Council. Questions, comments, potential motions?
Is that expected? I guess my question is, before any motion would be, is the shared driveways. We haven't really talked much about that. I see their point. It's pretty narrow spots in the front. And if you do see their drawing or the picture they sent, there's shared driveway right there. They'll be stone's throw away from that spot where we're talking about. Could you maybe explain again your reasoning for getting rid of or interest in getting rid of the shared driveways?
Go ahead, Mr. Sarah.
I just think long-term they become maintenance issues. I mean, if neighbors don't get along with each other, they're throwing snow on each other's driveways, and it's one more thing that potential headache that future owners may have to face. And I think from a staff perspective, we've kind of we've looked at this. It's a planning and development. There's some give and take to this. This is something from a staff perspective that we could easily address now. I mean, if you lost 2 lots, all the lots would shift, not just, you wouldn't just create one big lot. You'd actually shift the lot lines around and make it work. So I think it's something we could address, but we thought this would be a reasonable thing to do right now. But I do acknowledge that, yes, there are some within a golf swing away that you can hit.
Mr. Linder?
So if you no longer had the shared driveways for lot 6, 7, and 13, 14, you'd have to take one lot out.
I think it would come down to how they can make it work. I know what we said is make a minimum 60 feet. I think you'd lose at least one, possibly two.
Go ahead, Chuck.
We worked very hard when we came first to prepare this piece of property as best we could. If you remember, we started out with private streets and a layout, and we've really taken the suggestions that the city has had, and we've worked them into what you see in front of you now. And from my land surveyors and engineers, this is the best layout that we could come up with. And you know, I know staff would like to see that there wouldn't be a problem, but shared driveways are not a problem. I built those condominiums that you see in front of you, and they are almost 5 years old, and we've never had a complaint from anybody because they know that they're coming in, they're saving more front area, they're sharing a driveway, but they also have an adequate amount of parking. And the thing they like the best is it's side loaded, and they can create a nice front on their home. And if you look, the 4 lots you're speaking of are the largest lots. They will be set back in the area somewhat, and those will be the largest homes in there. And we can't restrict. We have a minimum size, but not a maximum size. So they could be some very nice homes in those areas. And I really think that in this day and age, you know, this is essentially a cul-de-sac. And if you look at an engineered cul-de-sac design, you don't get a full area of curb or street length out of a cul-de-sac design. You have to, it's a pie shape all the way around. And a cul-de-sac is a very, I guess, typical kind of road system to be able to take advantage of unusual size of pieces of land. And we've got a couple that's not extreme, and we're not asking that it all be done for all of the areas by any means. But we have taken a considerable amount of land and dedicated to the city and created a city street. And we've tried to do the best we possibly can. And I really am against changing the lot sizes, the lots at all in this case. I think it's not a fair thing for the staff to say that, well, just eliminate a lot. You've just eliminated $60,000 out of my pocket by just trying to eliminate one, besides the engineering that goes into trying to create the best efficient control, you know, that you can in a neighborhood street, a setting of this type. And I'm feeling that we're presenting you our absolute best. Now, this is not something we've looked at for 5 minutes. We've looked at this thing for 5 months. And we've gone back to D'Onofrio and had them lay it out. And we did ask them to try to lay it out where it would be something different. And they came back and said, you know, it just doesn't make any sense. We're trying to maximize land and provide the best type of a layout. And this is the best type of layout that we can give you.
Go ahead, Mr. Linder.
So you don't think that if you gave it its own driveway, you wouldn't be able to sell those houses for more?
No, I don't. We're not talking a huge. We've had a realtor come in and appraise each and every one of these lots, and they're going to range from 45 to 60. Those lots there will be $60,000 lots. That's a really reasonable price for a lot in this day and age. So if I eliminate an entire lot and then try to shift over, for one thing, now we're into next year, you know, because I'd have to go all the way back to the table and we have to start all over again, lay it out, try to move the lot lines, and for what? For the return is very minimal. And I think that we're bringing you a planned development here, and I think that at this point, you know, I've got tremendous confidence in what D'Onofrio Kotke as professional engineers have done, not only in this area, they've been instrumental in Verona and all around the city and all around Madison itself, and I have to rely on them as being professionals.
Ron, would you mind coming up again, please? Are you aware of any issues in other areas? You said you designed other areas like this. Are you aware of any issues after they've been built with the shared driveways?
I'm not. And not that I would be necessarily involved 5 years, 10 years later, but I just have seen them through the years continue to be operated, and actually new ones created as well. So I'm not aware of any problems.
I guess I'd asked you on other projects that you've designed. What about other projects that you haven't designed? And certainly there's other ones out there. Are you aware of any issues?
I have not heard of any, no.
Okay. Ms. Ritter?
The projects that you were involved with shared driveways, was that on lots that are going to be at this price range? $60,000?
There have been a couple instances. There have been more in rural areas where they're even longer.
Sure.
You know, where there's
Sure.
more shared cost, more maintenance.
Mhm.
But there have been a couple of those too, for similar neighborhoods.
Questions, comments, potential motions?
Wait for me.
Mr. Linder?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. I've been listening to what you say and what Mr. Sayer said. When I look at this picture here with the shared driveway, and there's one here that's not shared and it's pretty close by. Visually speaking, the shared one looks better to me. I think if you, I think I probably agree with the shared parking by a little bit. I think it'll probably look a little nicer without constant concrete going like this every few feet. So I'm gonna make a recommendation to the Plan Commission recommend that the Common Council approve the preliminary plat for Hometown Grove development with no conditions.
We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second? Is there a second? I will second the motion. Comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. And we have 2 noes. We'll let the minutes reflect that Mr. Horsfall and Mr. Heinzen voted no, and the motion passes. So the recommendation will go to the Common Council on Monday evening.
Thank you.
We are on agenda item number 9, which is discussion on future zoning map amendments to rezone properties within the downtown to central commercial. Mr. Sayer, if you would, please.
So one of the recommendations within the downtown plan is to rezone approximately, let's say, 30 properties. On your left here is the actual map from the downtown plan. The areas in red are the properties that are recommended to be rezoned to CC, Central Commercial, and the map on the right is the zoning map today. Ignore the blue colors because those are planned unit developments, but the rest of the parcels that are not red on the right map that are red in the left map are being recommended to be rezoned. Staff wants to begin this process, and I guess before we begin, we first of all want to make sure, one, that Plan Commission was comfortable with us starting this process. And second, in my memo, I kind of laid out a brief schedule of how we would do this. First, we'd send some letters to the property owners, informing them what the intentions are to see if they have any objections to it. If people do object, we recommend not rezoning their property at this time. The attempt, the goal of this rezoning is to have these properties be ready for redevelopment, to have an expanded commercial area within the downtown. A lot of times when developers come in, especially within downtown areas, they always ask, how long is it going to take for me to get my approvals? The reality is downtown development's already very challenging as it is. There are some small steps like this that the city can take that will hopefully spur development today, or if not, have it ready for development when a developer does come in. And this has no cost to the city as well. So that's why the recommendation was within the downtown plan. So staff is looking for feedback tonight on moving forward with this, and also any feedback you may have on the process as well.
Questions or comments, Mr. Burns? Mr. Burns, go ahead.
Just to follow up on some of the discussion with the downtown plan, I wanted to clarify that this proposal would be related to rezoning of the property, does not have anything to do with the city acquiring properties or looking at reuses, but merely providing the zoning context that would allow for redevelopment if property owners choose to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Other questions or comments? Mr. Horsfall?
So if I have a property and it's mixed residential, and then it's going to change to central commercial, will I get zoned out basically? Or does central commercial cover all the other zoning types?
Mr. Sayre?
The short answer is no. Obviously it would be a legal non-conforming structure, so they can maintain it, repair it, and as long as they keep using it in that fashion, it wouldn't go away. So that would be the balancing act when we sit down with property owners if they do have concerns about that rezoning. One, obviously if their intentions are to not be there or to have that property redeveloped now or in the very near future, it might be wise for them to rezone it. Or if they just don't believe in that and they are living there, have a house or whatever it may be, and they want to stay there, then my recommendation for them not to rezone at this time. I think just trying to get this out there and get some properties rezoned that are ready to go is a good thing. Hopefully you can get a chunk of them together. But the intention was for us to be proactive in doing this, but it could possibly create some legal non-conforming uses. I acknowledge that.
So follow up to that, from a realtor point of view, if I rezone my property to central commercial, is that more likely to be able to sell or less likely to be able to sell? Or is that's kind of a hypothetical, but.
Mr. Sayre?
It's gray. I think my personal opinion would it be more beneficial. Because there's a lot of the properties identified here are also identified in the plan as redevelopment. So probably long term, I think there's probably a greater benefit. I don't think from a price standpoint, and I'm not a realtor, but I don't think it would damage anyone by any means. I think it'd probably make things better. You're opening yourself the property up to more uses potentially. The CC district is our most flexible district we have in the city. So you'd have greater flexibility and the possibility of that redeveloping. But dollar-wise, it's a guess if I give you a guess.
Mr. Linder?
Just a little clarification of what you said. So if I owned a house along Main Street and we just rezoned it central commercial and I wanted to sell it, I could still sell it as a residential unit, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then, excuse me, is it, so there's gonna be like a one-on-one basis, you're gonna send a letter out saying are you interested in rezoning, however the letter goes? Or is it like a group them, like a open, like a meeting, like a public hearing or something people are gonna talk, general questions? Or is it more one-on-one?
My initial thought is sending out the letters, letting them know what the intentions are from the city, giving them a timeline or a date to get back to me on of their opinion, yes or no. Have the opportunity to meet one-on-one, figure out which ones are comfortable moving forward with that. And then at some point after that, I don't want to lock myself in at a time, then come back here. Depending if it's most of them, then I'd probably just come back with a public hearing. If it's a splattering kind of up and down the street, then maybe we come back, have the conversation and say, this is the people that are interested at this time. Once again, are you comfortable moving forward with this or not? I think if most people are interested in that rezoning, then I would just come back with that public hearing, because it would make sense at that point to, most of the map is going to be read that we recommend being read, then yeah, come back with that. But if people really aren't interested in that, well, that's maybe a different conversation that we should have about, do we do it now, or maybe it's not the right time. So, but I want to see what the feedback is from the people before we just say, yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah, but nobody should be surprised if
Correct.
That'd be-
Correct, yeah. If I don't hear back from people, my intention is to do everything within my power, either talking to Carl or whoever else, trying to get their home number and actually give them a call then. But the initial thought would be send that letter. Hopefully I get a response from people and then move on from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Other question, Mr. Horsfall?
So you can direct the comments to Bill Burns?
Other questions or comments on this agenda item? I'm seeing none, and there's no other business before us, so a motion to adjourn would be in order. We have a motion by Mr. Linder. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Horsfall. All in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.